Good morning, good morning. Good to have you aboard this stream today. Welcome. We have some really exciting stuff to talk about. Marvel actually just dropped their X-Men panel yesterday and came out with a ton of brand new, covers and solicits for their upcoming comics. So I'm pretty thrilled to talk about that a little bit later on in our stream. Also, DC Comics, I think over this weekend has announced some really cool DC titles. So we're going to talk about some of those as well in just a few moments. Also, there was so much news coming in from Marvel's film and television side over from Hall H yesterday with the revision of the Avengers 5 film and the announcement of Robert Downey Jr. coming in as Doctor Doom. That took me totally by left field. To be honest, I'm still processing some of my feelings about that. And I do wish that, and eventually at some point we will get that Kang Dynasty story. I'm really not sure how switching over to Doctor Doom is really going to shake out for these upcoming movies, but I'm really trying to have an open mind as we hopefully get to watch the MCU repair itself over the coming years, especially with the upcoming films. But I'm feeling a lot more positive in terms of the publishing side per usual. I feel like so many of the solicits and the brand new comic books that were announced, like yesterday in particular, were so much fun stemming from Marvel. A little bit later on in our stream, we're going to have a brand new solicit for the first issue of the upcoming Psylocke series that I think is going to be so much fun over at the publisher, too. First of all, just want to go ahead and jump on screen and say hello to everybody officially here. We do have a super awesome upcoming stream here with just so many news announcements stemming from, the female side of the X-Men universe to be fully fleshed out over with Psylocke joining the roster of the upcoming female X-Men heroes. Plus, we have some brand new solicits on our main X-Men titles, including X-Men #1, Uncanny X-Men, and the upcoming Exceptional X-Men, which I'm also just super, super thrilled about. I know we're going to talk about this in a ton more depth in a few minutes here, but the creative team on Psylocke looks exceptional. With Alyssa Wong coming in from Spirit World over with DC Comics. I am so thrilled to see her as the writer behind the upcoming Psylocke tale. I think that's going to be so much fun. Plus, we have El Mahmoud Asrar cover that was also debuted yesterday at Marvel Comics From the Ashes panel. So excited to get into that and to look at all the different ways that Marvel's positioning their female X-Men in the From the Ashes line. I really think that Marvel started to position the character of Jean Grey in a really interesting setting towards the end of Fall of X, especially with that miniseries over from Louise Simonson. So I'm really happy to see that they're still continuing to publish Jean Grey in her very own title, even in the From the Ashes launch. So yeah, just so much exciting stuff. DC Comics finally announced what they're doing with the Justice Society of America. That book also just has a fantastic creative team on that series too, with author Jeff Lemire returning to DC Comics for a big, history-influenced team book over at the publisher. We even have Ram V and a brand new news announcement for his upcoming series as well. Without further ado here, I want to welcome everybody over to our stream today. I am so excited to talk about Marvel's publishing line today. I feel like the From the Ashes titles are in such an interesting spot right now. And while we didn't get that big line-wide crossover that I thought we might have gotten as a result of San Diego Comic-Con, I still feel like there's so much interesting stuff happening in each individual X-Men comic book. Also, due to the fact that this line is so early in its infancy, I'm not really sure if the X-Men suite of titles could really support a crossover at this slate. We haven't even gotten the full launch with the major flagship titles like Uncanny X-Men yet. We talked about this a little bit in the opening segment, but Marvel Comics announced like a huge Avengers movie yesterday over at Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con. with Robert Downey Jr. coming in as Doctor Doom. I'm still processing some of my feelings over on that, and I kind of wish that Marvel actually went ahead and recasted Kang as opposed to like shifting their continuity at the very last minute. I'm really excited to see how that shakes out, and I'm also curious if Marvel's plans with Doctor Doom are influenced by their publishing at all. In fact, why don't we go ahead and start off our stream today by analyzing Marvel's brand new upcoming event here for their publishing line featuring Doctor Doom. Let's go ahead and kick things off with a really interesting article that actually came in from Popverse just yesterday. Here it is. Doctor Doom is Marvel's new Sorcerer Supreme, and you wouldn't believe who he's working with. So this was written by Popverse's editor-in-chief Chris Arendt and published on popverse.com. Move over, Doctor Strange. We have a new Sorcerer Supreme in the house, Doctor Doom. Now that we understand Marvel's upcoming MCU announcements, I feel like this Doctor Doom story is definitely coming to a much stronger sense of place, and is also really establishing itself in terms of the synergy between Marvel's film and television and comic book projects. Well, that escalated quickly. Doctor Doom will soon be taken over as Marvel Comics' Sorcerer Supreme, seemingly after the ending of the current, Blood Hunt event series. No, this isn't a spoiler. Marvel is announcing it. At Marvel Comics' Next Big Thing panel here at San Diego Comic-Con, the company announced that Doctor Doom is taken over from Doctor Strange as the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth 616. And unlike Strange, who took it upon himself to protect the world from evil magic, Doom is too busy for that, so he is delegating it to Spider-Man. In the Amazing Spider-Man story arc 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, beginning with November's Amazing Spider-Man 61, Marvel's Wallcrawler will be enlisted as Doctor Doom's unlikely deputy to protect evil magic. So there you go. It feels like so many of the pieces are in place for a big Doctor Doom presence in Marvel's upcoming publishing line. Also, as you can see here, the fact that Amazing Spider-Man is tied into this Doctor Doom-inspired direction for Marvel Comics also positions Doctor Doom as a really important player to the future of Marvel's publishing. As you can see here, the status quo and continuity is shifting at Marvel as Doctor Doom is taking on the mantle of the Sorcerer Supreme, which seems to be the catalyst for this upcoming event and for Doctor Doom taking on so much power here. To do the job, Spider-Man is getting a new suit, some magic of his own, and 8 extra lives to learn on the job. 8 Deaths of Spider-Man is being written by Joe Kelly with art by Ed McGuinness. Okay, and we have some speculation coming in here from Popverse also. They say, my big question is this. Doctor Doom as Sorcerer Supreme sounds like something bigger than can be contained in just one Marvel comic. I wonder what the Avengers have to think about this, let alone the Fantastic Four, and an extra question. Why is Doom too busy to do the Sorcerer Supreme's usual job anyway? Yeah, very interesting how Marvel is connecting so many pieces of their publishing line between Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme mantle passing over to Doom, and then we have Spider-Man also getting in the mix of this upcoming story as well. So I am very pumped to see the creative team featured on this new Doom storyline. I'm really interested to see how Joe Kelly is going to leverage the tone on this upcoming Spider-Man arc between the tense nature of Doctor Doom and the very happy-go-lucky nature of Spider-Man. So very interested in where Marvel's core publishing is headed, and I really think they might be getting off on the right foot and have some really interesting synergy in terms of the films. AfroSF, so good to have you aboard here. I won't be able to afford all these interesting books coming out this fall. It's going to be difficult to choose. I'll try and provide as much coverage as I can to at least tell you what some of the highlights and the very best books are going to be coming out this fall as well. So be sure to stay tuned over to the channel. Also, we didn't say it over on our last stream, so I want to make sure we say it on this stream. If you're new here to the channel, if you enjoy what we do here, if you aren't subscribed, please like the stream and please subscribe to the channel as well. It's fantastic to have you here, and I don't want you to miss out on any of our upcoming streams. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into finally some new news over from San Diego Comic-Con yesterday. This for me is so exciting here. We have a brand new Gods comic book from DC and a new Justice Society of America title too. I know we haven't been covering like a ton of DC comics on the channel lately, but these are some of my very favorite characters across the DC universe. I always like, the odds and ends and some of the really like mysterious and like out of touch characters. So let's go ahead and see what DC has in store for the New Gods and JSA at San Diego Comic-Con. Plus, we're also going to get some brand new news announcements for books like Poison Ivy and Green Lantern. As far as I'm concerned, these are all really solid books at DC Comics. So very happy to be talking about this article from David Brooke posted on Adventures in Poor Taste yesterday. DC Comics excited fans earlier this week with Justice League Unlimited in Absolute Batman details. We talked about Justice League Unlimited yesterday. While I'm a little bit sad that the Justice League are returning to the DC Universe and kind of taking the shine away from the Titans team, I'm still happy to have Mark Waid writing a brand new Justice League team. Absolute Batman we haven't really talked about in a ton of depth, but I am really hoping that that book is going to live up to the potential of some of the design choices. Of course, I'm interested to see what Scott Snyder is bringing to that book too. Okay, now we've got even more, to get excited over thanks to the What's Happening at the DC Multiverse panel at San Diego Comic-Con. The panel roster included writers Mark Waid, G. Willow Wilson, Jeremy Adams, and Tate Brownball, featuring artists Wetworther, Del Idera, writers Ram V and Jeff Lemire were also on hand to break some great news about upcoming DC projects. First, Javins opened the panel with fan-favorite writer Mark Waid, who will take over Action Comics as the series shifts from monthly to weekly. Man, I keep seeing all these projects that Mark Waid is taking on at DC. It feels like he's going to be overextended. I just opened up DC's website this morning, and I saw that he was attached with Chris Samney on an upcoming Batman Year One storyline. I'm just wondering at this stage how many disparate projects Waid is going to be able to take on. So this begins with issue 1070 on October 9th. Waid and artist Clayton Henry are sending the Man of Steel back to the Phantom Zone to investigate the mystery behind an otherworldly horror that is terrorizing Metropolis. I love the idea of Clayton Henry drawing the main Superman book in continuity. I feel like I've seen him draw other characters in a ton of depth, but never like Clark himself. So that also should be quite interesting. Javins and Waid also confirmed that October will see the return of Supergirl in Action Comics, with writer Mariko Tamaki and Skylar Partridge collaborating on a backup story featuring the Woman of Tomorrow. As far as I'm concerned, Mariko Tamaki and Skylar Partridge have done really solid work in terms of Supergirl. I think that's a super strong creative team that's able to inject a ton of personality into the writing. I am so happy to have not only Mark Waid on Action Comics, but also Mariko Tamaki and Skylar Partridge too. This Clayton Henry cover, I believe on Action Comics, is just gorgeous. I'm loving all the negative space and just the really careful ways that Henry was able to arrange so many of the individual pieces on the image too. Here's some of the covers on Action 1071 and 1072. AfroSF says, I'm old enough to remember Action Comics going weekly in the 80s. It's a big risk in today's market. Yeah, I just think people are having a really hard time keeping up with the vast volume of comics that are published each and every month. And I don't necessarily know if the market is going to be able to sustain it, but I'm interested for as long as DC is going to publish it, frankly. I feel like, too, having the creative team with Mark Waid is just a big and bold way to present the publishing, too. Okay, let's talk about this super exciting upcoming JSA comic book. This was also announced over at that panel and features writing over from Jeff Lemire. Very happy to see the team that's assembled here, but I'm equally sad to see the Jeff Johns era of JSA actually sunset at the publisher too. I feel like Jeff Johns had a really interesting creative vision along with Mikkel Janin. Unfortunately, I don't think that book was really published quite often enough to merit, DC this really important roster of characters dedicated over to that one series. Therefore, it's time for a brand new era for the Justice Society of America. And having, Jeff Lemire, such a seasoned writer at DC, take over this property is very exciting for me. Let's see. Let's see what else we have here. We have some of the brand new designs for each of the individual figures here. Very interesting to see like Jesse Quick and Obsidian and the rest of some of these heroes as well. And we also have Ram V talking about his upcoming New God series. Ram V broke some exciting news about his contribution to the DC All-In Initiative, announcing that he'll be writing his own take on Jack Kirby's Fourth World in the New Gods, scheduled to launch this December and featuring artwork by Detective Comics cover artist Evan Cagle in his DC series debut. So much to be excited about here. I believe the covers from Evan Cagle on Detective Comics were actually based on a series of old paintings. So the idea that both Ram V and Evan Cagle are both, so studious in some of their research is so exciting in terms of what Evan Cagle is going to be able to bring over to the interiors for New Gods. Ram V is such a thoughtful writer, and I think the New Gods require a creative team that has a really, really strong vision. Let's hear what Ram V is bringing to this new series. So he spoke to the audience about the panel on what attracted him to this project and working with Cagle, and hinted at what readers can expect when the debut issue hits participating comic book shops. Absolute and All-In triggers a cosmic rebalance, which starts this spiral between New Genesis and Apocalypse, Ram V said. It's also a story about fatherhood. So here we have, I believe, one of the new covers for this upcoming New Gods series. Once again, we have got a great cast of characters here assembled with Granny Goodness. We have Metron, Mr. Miracle, Orion, so many of the really fantastic characters in the DC universe assembled with this really nice Pete Woods cover as well. We also have an update here on Green Lantern from Jeremy Adams. Writer Jeremy Adams spoke with Javins and the audience about Hal Jordan's role in this summer's Absolute Power event, what's to come for Hal and the Green Lantern Corps in October, as Hal, Guy Gardner, and John Stewart confront the Dark Star resurrection and what it means for their friend Kilowog. Adams also provided teases about how this new storyline could impact the fate of the Green Lantern Corps, which will be revealed in the October 9th Green Lantern Corps Civil Corps special, which he is co-writing with Philip Kennedy Johnson. I was so devastated by the surprise cancellation of Green Lantern War Journal. I am so thrilled to hear that Jeremy Adams is still collaborating with Philip Kennedy Johnson on some upcoming Green Lantern material. Also, I feel like so much of Green Lantern War Journal was devoted to setting up the resurrection of the Dark Stars. So seeing that this plot thread is continuing in the main Green Lantern series is also cause for a ton of celebration. Excuse me. These covers are so amazing here. This one from Salvador LaRocca features the full extent of our Green Lantern cast, as we have Guy Gardner, Hal Jordan, John Stewart. We also have Jessica Cruz and Joe Mullane over from Green Lantern Far Sector, as well as Kyle. So happy to see just such a big roster of our Green Lantern heroes represented. In keeping with the green theme, writer Tate Bromball and artist Werther Del Idera provided some further details on their DC Elseworlds debut. Okay, I was wondering what project Tate Bromball and Werther Del Idera had. It looks like they're working on the upcoming Green Lantern Dark project, which is launching as a part of DC's upcoming Elseworlds project. So this one is slated to come out October 23rd. Javin spoke with the duo about what drew them to tell a new story based on DC's tangent version of Green Lantern, the opportunities of working outside DC's core continuity, and being a part of DC's revamped Elseworlds imprint. Hi, Geek Ledger. So great to have you over on the stream today. Welcome aboard. This is a dark fantasy book with this Green Lantern as sole hero left. It's a book where we find the willpower to fight on. Okay, once again, here we have writing from Tate Bromball and art from Werther Del Idera. So let's look at some of these concept projects. Looks like this one is coming in over from Dan Jurgens, depicting what looks to be the upcoming and protagonist, rather, for Green Lantern Dark. We also have a much more exaggerated and stylistic cover, hopefully showing off some of the dark underpinnings for this story. Loving this more Asian-inspired cover coming in over from Otto Hemer. And David Nakayama produces just a fantastic cover, also really establishing a different tone than what we've seen from the other creators who've contributed covers on Green Lantern Dark also. Geek Ledger, how hyped is everyone from those Hall H panels last night? Superman and Lois doing the death and return of Superman for the final season, the Russo Bros and Robert Downey Jr. coming back to Marvel, etc. AfroSF says, I love the tangent Green Lantern, the lady with the lantern lamp. Yeah, so interesting that this comic book is actually riffing on the Tangent universe from DC. I love that idea, and I'm always such a big fan of DC bringing back, older ideas into like present comics in new and invigorating ways. I think that's also why I've been such a big fan of DC bringing back the Dark Stars in Green Lantern War Journal. I feel like the way that they showed up just really racked my brain and kept me guessing after like each individual issue. Also, Geek Ledger, I am not sure what to think about Robert Downey Jr. Joining the upcoming Avengers movie as the villainous Doctor Doom. I am just not sure if Marvel is going to be able to make sense of that really interesting storyline. And also, I am very worried about how they're going to have to shoehorn Kang the Conqueror and everything they were doing with him and let in yet a new villain. That being said, though, if the movie's good, I would be very happy to support it over on the channel. I feel like these movies and television shows, turning out well is such a good thing for the publishing line and gets a ton of people interested in some of these projects. So at the end of the day here, my fingers are crossed that Robert Downey Jr. is going to deliver an amazing performance and, that movie is going to be exceptional because I think it would be good for everything involved with Marvel publishing and film as well. Wow, this looks like interior art. This is really, really beautiful and evokes such a different tone than so many of these covers did. Yeah, loving the sense of shadow draped on like each and every panel here. And such a beautiful sense of green hues towards the bottom of some of these pages. I really want to give the color artist special props here. Okay, let's quickly talk about the future of Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is such an interesting series at DC because I feel like the protagonist of Poison Ivy is justified in some of her eco-terrorism, but she definitely takes things way too far in each and every single issue of her main series. I'm curious to see where G. Willow Wilson is headed. Due to the fact that Poison Ivy has been published so long, where is the direction of the book headed for the near future here? Let's see what she has to say. Writer G. Willow Wilson updated fans on Poison Ivy as part of DC All In. As she and artist Marcio Takara, by the way, I just want to say Marcio Takara is incredible. The artwork that she delivers here is so amazing. So they're entering their third year of the title, beginning with issue 26. Wilson provided details about Ivy's brand new life and restored powers and resuming her wrathful and just war for the natural balance of the world. Beginning with the restoration of the wetlands that Gotham City's industrial waste has destroyed, but in the process, Ivy unintentionally resurrects an ancient horror from Gotham's past. Wilson also teased about a Swamp Thing crossover in October. As far as her powers, Willow said, there's a bigger question about where Ivy's source of power comes from. I would love to see too if Poison Ivy was able to cross over with the Levi Kamei Swamp Thing. I love that series from Romv. I thought it was so fascinating, and also, teaming up such like a seasoned DC Comics Batman villain with somebody new like Levi, I think would be a ton of fun. These Jenny Frison covers on Poison Ivy are amazing. This one is so simple, but it's able to capture like really interesting themes as far as the issue goes, while depicting the main character in a striking and negative aesthetic. Man, this cover is really gorgeous as well. Looks like this one is coming over from somebody named Nubuvic. And here is a Sebastian Fiumara cover for an upcoming issue of Poison Ivy 2. AfroSF says the DC Tangent universe ends in the year 2030, which was revealed in a Tangent Doom Patrol number 1 in 1997. Dan Jurgens wants to complete the story he plotted 26 years ago. That is incredible. I always like that. DC Comics have been published for just years and years and years, and they have such like a rich and exciting history. Thank you so much for sharing, AfroSF. That's awesome. And Marvel actually also released a ton of new announcements yesterday. We're going to go ahead and dive into our upcoming X-Men stories. Okay, so just a couple days before San Diego Comic-Con, Marvel Comics actually dropped a teaser for an upcoming Psylocke series. I think it's so cool how Marvel has been publishing so many solo X-Men female books as a part of their From the Ashes launch. Readers have just seen the ongoing Phoenix series launch from Stephanie Phillips and Alessandro Miraclo, and now Marvel is announcing the next wave of female-led solo titles for the X-Men's From the Ashes. Here is the brand new Psylocke #1 coming in from Alyssa Wong and Vincenzo Carratù. This is a really, really wonderful creative team. Alyssa Wong is coming in from the Spirit World series that just managed to pique my interest with each and every issue. Vincenzo Carratù delivered incredible work on comic books like that recent Iceman series and Dead X-Men. This cover from Mahmoud Asrar is shockingly beautiful. Let's see what this creative team. Let's see what this creative team is bringing to Psylocke this upcoming November here. Just announced at the Marvel Comics X-Men From the Ashes panel at San Diego Comic-Con, Editor-in-Chief C.B. Cebulski, Executive Editor Tom Brevoort, and a host of X-Men creators gave fans the scoop on what's to come in this exciting new era of X-Men comic storytelling, including the reveal of an all-new solo ongoing series, Psylocke. Launching in November, Psylocke will be written by Alyssa Wong, known for her acclaimed work on Star Wars Dr. Aphra and Deadpool, and drawn by rising star Vincenzo Carratù. The artist currently delivering explosive vampire slaying action in Dracula Blood Hunts. I am so curious if any of Alyssa Wong's time with Dr. Aphra has inspired any of the dark underpinnings or some of the seedy world of Psylocke. Psylocke will tie into the X-Men's current status quo established in Jed MacKay and Ryan Stegman's X-Men #1, where she lends her deadly expertise to Cyclops' team of X-Men operating out of Alaska. However, there are missions that aren't suitable for the X-Men and require Psylocke to embrace the dark teachings of her past. Psylocke was a really interesting presence in terms of the adjectiveless X-Men #1, she had a really thrilling fight sequence where she was able to dispatch some of the foes to the mutants in the first issue of X-Men. Also, she's very quiet in this new series so far and really operates in terms of a ton of deadly violence. Very happy to see that Marvel's editorial is collaborating in terms of both X-Men and Psylocke, and I'm really interested to see where this ongoing series and where X-Men is going to position Quan and Psylocke next. After taking on the mantle of Psylocke, Quanon became one of Krakoa's breakout stars in titles like Hellions and Uncanny Avengers. Man, Hellions was one of my absolute favorite comic books from the Krakoan era. I absolutely love what Zeb Wells and Steven Segovia did on so many of those issues. It was also quite interesting to see her show up in Uncanny Avengers also. Now the telepathic and telekinetic ninja goes solo. Her upcoming adventures features appearances by her lover Grey Crow, shed light on her brutal upbringing with the Hand, and introduce a twisted supervillain called the Taxonomist. And that was one of the other things I really wanted to see reference in terms of this new Psylocke series, was to see whether or not Marvel was going to leverage her relationship with Grey Crow. I'm also very happy to see that they're continuing to embrace so much continuity between Psylocke's relationship and her new team operating out of Alaska with the adjectiveless X-Men. So tons of continuity in this new Psylocke series. I really have a feeling that Marvel's headed in the right direction with this book also. She was made for violence, trained to be an assassin since birth. Quanon chose to be an X-Man. But there are still some jobs too dirty for the X-Men, and some paths have to be walked alone. When the mission is brutal, Psylocke unsheaths her blade to punish those who prey on mutants. Exploding out of the pages of X-Men, joins Psylocke into the underbelly of the Marvel Universe, carving out her own place in a world that would rather see her under control. Everything in her history points to her to the path of a villain, Wong shared. Her background is so full of tragedy, why does she choose to be a hero? This is a dark and emotional character story, but it will also be something a ton of fun as well. I'm excited to do something super dark. This is the cover from Mahmoud Asrar. In addition, here we have one coming in from Ricky Yagawa. And also one illustrated by Artgerm 2. So for me, this really could be a new beginning for Psylocke. I wish her role in the Krakoan era was a little bit bolstered. And also, I really want somebody to write a character-focused story for this hero. I feel like across Krakoa, Betsy Braddock was way better served than Quanon. So maybe in the From the Ashes era, we'll get a brand new sea change and a much bigger focus for this really interesting mainstay X-Men moving forward. Check out this Psylocke #1 cover by Mahmoud Asrar, along with 3 variant covers, and stay tuned for more San Diego Comic-Con news throughout the weekend. And this variant that we have on the screen is from Hicham Habji. Okay, so I really think we have nothing to worry about in terms of this new Psylocke series. Marvel's taken on so much continuity between having Quanon operate with Grey Crow, as well as having her embrace these elements of Cyclops and the Factory here. So really interesting things in store for Psylocke. But Marvel Comics also actually dropped a brand new slate of covers and solicit for upcoming X-Men titles. Let's head over to Adventures in Poor Taste and preview all the brand new art and solicits coming in from yesterday's From the Ashes panel. This one also coming in from David Brooke on July 27th. So we already talked about the upcoming Psylocke comic book coming up from Marvel, but they also dropped other series as well. Give me just a few moments here. I'm pulling this up on both screens here. Perfect. We are all set to go. So here's the brand new cover for X-Men number 7, featuring a very interesting and morose Sentinel seemingly reaching out towards Cyclops here. This one is on sale over in November, featuring writing from Jed McKay and art from Netho Diaz, with the cover from none other than Ryan Stegman. The Iron Knight. What does the town of Merle, Alaska owe the X-Men? Where did the defunct Sentinel looming over the town come from? And, more importantly, what was it after? So it looks like this cover for X-Men is following up on the cliffhanger for the first chapter of the series, where we learned that the factory was actually an operation for building Sentinels for the X-Men. So it was really interesting to see this incredibly melodramatic plot thread reopened up towards X-Men, and I love the idea of all this coming full circle in an upcoming issue. Also, I wanted to note here that we don't have Ryan Stegman on interiors for this issue. We have Netho Diaz. Netho Diaz previously contributed some work towards X-Men Era of Apocalypse. I think his artwork is really detailed and also could accommodate Ryan Stegman really, really nicely here. Okay, for this upcoming X-Men book, we've already seen this cover a couple times, but it's good to finally have the solicit to start putting some of the disparate pieces together. So this is the 5th issue of Uncanny X-Men. It looks like all these comic books are on sale in November, and this one features our usual creative team of Gail Simone and David Marquez. The solicit looks a little ominous, though. It says, "The brutal conclusion to the Red Wave storyline is here. The Uncanny X-Men face an unstoppable force of evil and death who reveals a shocking secret. But they might not survive long enough to face it. Will the next generation of young mutants stand by Rogue and her team, or join the other side?" Yeah, really interested towards where this solicit is headed. I'm also loving that this first storyline for Uncanny X-Men now has a name with the Red Wave. So far, we know next to nothing about some of the villains who are going to be popping up in Uncanny X-Men. I am so thrilled to see what they look like moving forward and just where this book is going in earnest. Also, this cover is so gorgeous here from David Marquez and evokes Gambit in such an interesting and kind of battle-worn way here too. This upcoming solicit for X-Men, I think, starts to shed a little bit more light on where the comic book is headed in full. This one is actually breaking away from David Marquez on the interiors. We're getting artist Javier Guerin. Javier Guerin really seems to be an up-and-coming artist in terms of Marvel's publishing line. I have really loved some of his previous comic books, even though they aren't coming to mind right now. I think he's going to be a little bit more stylized than David Marquez, but still really thrilled to see what he's going to bring to this Gail Simone comic. It's back to school for 4 young mutants, but is a rural school in Louisiana ready for this crew? Bullies, terrible lunches, and classroom flirting abound. But is one of the student body the prophesied endling who will be the last member of mutant kind? Plus, Jubilee undertakes a fateful solo mission. X-Men Uncanny X-Men 6 looks to be a lot more ambitious, taking on seemingly a new roster of mutant characters. Also, we have a subplot lingering in the background involving Jubilee 2. Tons of exciting stuff here for Uncanny X-Men. I'm wondering if the Red Wave threat is also going to manifest in the 6th issue, or if that's going to be dispatched in the last one. I think this cover is also bringing in a much different flavor from David Marquez than what we've seen on past covers for the main Uncanny X-Men book, and evokes a big sense of mystery here too with these brand new characters. Okay, here is the upcoming cover for Exceptional X-Men. I've noticed that Carmen Carnero draws her figures with so much tension on each and every page, but I love just how much aesthetic and detail that she's able to give to each of her individual figures. Plus, love how some of our new mutant characters are in the background, horrified at both Kitty and Emma fighting with each other. There's a ton of personality on this cover that proves why Carmen Carnero is probably one of my like top 4 artists at Marvel currently working there right now. She's wonderful. This series still written by Eve Ewing. We already talked about Carmen Carnero's involvement. This one on sale in November, and it's the 3rd issue of Exceptional X-Men. Kitty Pryde's determination to stay doggedly away from all things X-Men related becomes more strained by the day as Emma Frost once again sticks her nose into things. Meanwhile, our team is finding their rhythm. Axo, Melee, and Bronze have officially entered the fray. In terms of where we are at Marvel's publishing, I am very positive about some of these brand new X-Men characters with Axo, Melee, and Bronze. I'm so interested in how they're going to fit with this upcoming new team dynamic and how their relationships are going to be fleshed out with both Kitty Pryde and Emma. So I have so much, warm feelings about the future of Exceptional X-Men, and I feel like there is a ton of interesting plot developments over in the solicit for the issue too. This upcoming comic book surprised me because it's actually my most anticipated among this roster of X-Men books. This is the latest issue of NYX, Chapter 5, written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, featuring our usual creative team with art from Francesco Mortarino and a cover by Sarah Pichelli. They've been fired, arrested, thrown out, beaten, and betrayed. New York City is putting Ms. Marvel, Wolverine, Anole Prodigy, and Sophie Cuckoo through the ringer. But there's no time to rest. A riot's brewing between the machinations of the Quiet Council and the hatred of the Truth Seekers will come to an electric collision for the fates of every mutant in the city. I want to take a quick step back here and say that if you haven't read the first issue of NYX, you might want to come back and then watch the rest of our stream. It is so fascinating to see all these elements of the QR page finally manifest on this upcoming cover for NYX, showing Sophie doing battle against the rest of the Cuckoos here in a really like psychologically, horrific sequence here. Also, the idea that the Quiet Council is brewing something else and the Truth Seekers are coming up for an electric collision is also very, very fascinating. I am loving so much of the subtext for NYX, and I feel like with so many of these characters, it's starting to become one of my favorite titles for From the Ashes. This Sarah Pichelli cover is absolutely phenomenal. The expressions and just elements of distress that Sophie has just really capture so much of my imagination too. This is the upcoming issue of X Factor. For me, this one is notable because it's written by Mark Russell, featuring artwork from Bob Quinn. We have covers on this series from Greg Land. Beneath the surface, Havoc and the team race to recover the crew of a subterranean expedition beneath Death Valley. But who or what was waiting beneath the desert sands, and what does all of this have to do with Cecilia Reyes? Marvel's X Factor series is largely a mystery to me. I'm not sure how silly Mark Russell is going to be able to get with telling a storyline with so many mutants so important to Marvel's main continuity. Also, in terms of this book, the big question I have is where Madeline Pryor is in terms of the X-Men universe. It felt like her and Havoc established such a close relationship in terms of Dark X-Men, and I'm pretty thrilled to see where they're headed next, and if Mark Russell is going to be able to make this big change to Marvel's X-Men feel natural or forced. Also, the character of Frenzy is really cool. I know next to nothing about her, so I'm hoping this X Factor series will introduce me to some more mutants across Marvel's publishing as well. Here's the upcoming cover for Mystique. I think Declan Shalvey as a creator takes on so many chances and the sideways angle and the negative space from this cover, I think, is just once again hauntingly beautiful and captures my imagination in a way that Sarah Pichelli did over on that cover for NYX. So Mystique issue 2, also on sale in November, features not only art and cover from Declan Shelvey, but writing as well. Brotherhood Broken. With Nick Fury on her tail, Mystique seeks out an old ally from the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. But is this a reunion or a trap? And who's caught who? So right now, it looks like Mystique is battling with Nick Fury, formerly of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Marvel Universe. The idea of Mystique taking on this really interesting espionage element and heading out into the world of being a spy is really fascinating, especially with Mystique being a superhero and uniting her entire family towards the end of the Krakoan era for Marvel Comics. To be honest, maybe Marvel would have better served the character if they pushed this storyline out a couple months so they didn't accidentally, derail a lot of those warm feelings from the X-Men special. So very interested to see if Declan Shelvey can make this upcoming storyline with Mystique meld into the rest of Marvel's continuity, and just what his artwork is going to look like, because these covers so far have been absolutely incredible. Here's the latest issue of Phoenix. We talked about this series yesterday. This one actually features the same creative team as well, with Stephanie Phillips on writing. We have Alessandro Miraclo on art and covers by Yasmin Putri. I want to quickly reference the fact that Alessandro Miraclo was found to be tracing some of his contemporaries in recent panels and imagery across Phoenix. I'm very disappointed. I'm wondering if Marvel is going to respond to this and maybe replace Miraclo with another creator. And I'm very, very concerned about this because I definitely don't want Miraclo to kind of cannibalize other artists and detract from all the greatness of From the Ashes and with what Stephanie Phillips was doing on Phoenix. I'm still excited about this comic book. I think Stephanie Phillips delivered a great script for the first issue. I love the character of Adani, and the covers from Yasmin Putri are beautiful. Let's check out the solicit on this one. Life Incarnate versus Energy Infinite. Jean Grey made a human choice, and it's come back to haunt her. The dark god Parakis has been freed from prison and set loose on a path of death and destruction. Now the Phoenix must take action to protect her universe. The idea of Jean Grey going up against Parakis right now is very thrilling for me. I love that the first issue of Jean Grey set up her battle with Parakis as well as Adani. And we also got the Universal Church of Truth. So there's a lot of stuff going on in that first chapter of Phoenix. We also took a look at an upcoming solicit yesterday, teasing the fact that Gore, the God Butcher, is also coming over to this comic book. In fact, we even have the Starjammers, and we also have the Black Order, who used to work with Thanos. So, man, this Phoenix comic book is using so much of Marvel's cosmic and so many disparate pieces of continuity to pit Jean Grey against really interesting villains here. Man, if Marvel could just figure out a new artist on this book, I would be so incredibly positive about it. But I'm very happy with what Phillips has accomplished with Jean Grey to date and just how ambitious this comic book is overall here. It's a new day, and I could not be more excited to talk to you about X-Force. For me, this comic book is so thrilling due to the cast alone. Having this be the new destination for Betsy Braddock and Ascani, Rachel, is so epic. Also, in this new character of Tank, we have Sage, Forge, and a character who has just been so fascinating to me as Surge. I've never actually read Surge as part of Marvel's main continuity, but I think she's been such an interesting supporting character in the Ultimate X-Men series. I am really thrilled to see Marvel utilizing this character in Ultimate continuity and just regular Marvel Comics continuity. let's see what they have in store for the 5th issue of X-Force. It looks like this one has our usual creative team, Jeffrey Thorne, Marcus Toe, and Steven Segovia. A death on the team. Attack from all sides, with the team members' death in the offing and struggling to accomplish their mission. X-Force fights to seal the latest and worst fracture node threatening the Earth. Can X-Force pull through, or will they fracture and doom the world? The most surprising X-books of the season is just heating up. If you haven't been reading it, now is the time to jump aboard. I want to be totally honest here, as positive and as excited I am for this overall series. The idea that this new team of X-Force characters are trying to seal the latest and worst fracture node threatening the Earth, I don't think is that much fun. But just the roster of this team and the way that Jeffrey Thorne and Marcus Toe are pitting all these characters together with interesting, heroes like the Man-Thing is just endlessly fascinating. Hopefully, the idea of Forge's new technology will also bring the book towards greatness instead of bringing it towards like a really forced upcoming plot point. But very excited for what the future holds for X-Force. I am hoping that in the near future, maybe Jeffrey Thorne could pit this group against an established like Marvel villain. That way, it's going to be a little bit more clear as to what this team is actually doing in terms of Marvel's continuity. Usually I am not excited for Wolverine, but my tune is changing here because this brand new era of Wolverine is written by the incredible Saladin Ahmed, who is currently crafting an epic and beautiful run on Daredevil and featuring artwork from Martin Coccolo, who's just delivered once again so much epic work at Marvel. I think this cover also speaks to just the quality of him as an artist too. Department H goes hunting. Canada's Department H has their sights trained once more on Wolverine. Years ago, they played a role in Weapon X and Logan's first assignment, but what else are they hunting now that mutants are hated and feared more than ever? Meanwhile, Wolverine's unlikely ally may have just killed an innocent, and old enemies of Wolverine gather as more sinister machinations unfurl. A key issue as the all-new villain moving against Wolverine comes into sharper focus. It really feels like this new Wolverine is trying to pick up the pieces of Krakoa and establish its own visual identity while setting up a brand new villain. It really feels to me like Saladin Ahmed has his work cut out for him in the future issues of Wolverine. But according to this solicit, it seems like the plot is moving pretty fast. We already have this brand new sinister plot thread with the Department H. And as we already mentioned, we have an all-new villain and an unlikely ally in the series too. So as far as I'm concerned, it looks like Saladin Ahmed's script is just as ambitious as I hoped it would be, coming off of the current and just really vivid ongoing Daredevil book. Here's the upcoming series for Dazzler. This one is also really exciting for me in terms of the talent featured on this book. Jason Liu is a wonderful creator. I'm so interested to see what he's going to bring with this Dazzler series that's featured just gorgeous covers from Terry and Rachel Dodson. We previewed one of the most recent issues on our stream yesterday and saw that Dazzler was going to London. This issue, it seems like she's actually in Japan. Let's check out the solicit and see what kind of trouble Dazzler is getting into over with Lila Cheney. By the way, real quick, let's mention that the artwork in this one is illustrated by Rafael Loureiro, who I'm also not familiar with, but hoping to get a little bit more acclimated to their art in Dazzler. Where mutant rock star Lila Cheney goes, trouble follows. Dazzler and Lila duet in Japan, while Dazzler's mysterious nemesis continues to create havoc and some majorly bad publicity. When Lila and Dazzler blow off some steam in the streets, Tokyo disaster strikes. Will this be the last stop for the world tour and their lives? Seems like this is a really fun romp featuring Dazzler. I really hope that Jason Liu will be able to tap into, the psychology of Allison to make this book feel more than just, your average everyday X-Men fluff and like a story that's pretty essential to the character of Dazzler. I'm also hoping to find a way to get a little bit more acclimated towards Lila Cheney as a character. I haven't read too many X-Men stories with her, so very curious to see how Jason Liu is going to position her relationship with Dazzler, especially because they're both musically inclined here too. Let's talk about the next issue of Storm. This one is an absolute blast for me because of the creative team. We talked about this yesterday. This series is written by Marewa Ayadeli, who has written some great work on Iron Man. We also have art from Lucas Wernick, delivered wonderful interiors on Immortal X-Men, and Mateus Manhanini, who crafted covers for series like Gods at Marvel. So really, really wonderful and new batch of talent on this Storm book. Like so many of these other comics, I'm so interested to see what kind of plot threads this team is going to take on with Storm. Let's read a little bit more about the second issue of her latest series. Storm is dying. An unknown form of radiation poisoning from the Oklahoma incident has turned her cells into ticking time bombs. As her final hours count down, will she find a cure for her illness at Night Nurse's new superhero hospital, or will it require enchantments from Dr. Voodoo to save her life? Wow, this series is not what I expected at all. It doesn't really seem like we're getting any ties to Arakko just based off some of these solicits here. Also, we have so many elements across the Marvel Universe in this solicit that are not related to X-Men characters, being the Night Nurse and Dr. Voodoo. So, wow, this book really has like a much different cast than I would expect for it to take on, and is positioning Storm in a much more interesting place than I would have thought. Like so many of the other covers here, this one really captures my imagination with the really strong glance that Storm is given to the audience too. I'm also loving the attention to detail on Mateus Manhanini with the new costume of Storm defined here, also illustrated from Lucas Wernick. Here's the new issue of Sentinels, written by Alex Packnadel, featuring artwork from Justin Mason. Justin Mason's covers over 4 Sentinels have been so expressive and have always featured such an interesting visual display here. So this one actually features the character of Sebastian Shaw coming back into the fray. This is the second issue of Sentinels. Operation Shaw. The Sentinels have their orders. Enter an enemy nation, infiltrate a maximum security prison, and escape with Sebastian Shaw. Can Lockstep bring his people home safely? Will Shaw get the better of the new Sentinels, or does a greater shadow hang over Grey Malkin prison? Man, Sebastian Shaw is such a busy villain in terms of Marvel Comics. He was just trying to strip Krakoa for parts, and now he ends up with this, steroided out demeanor over in Sentinel. So much different role for Sebastian Shaw to play in terms of the Marvel Universe, and I see that he's taken a much more traditional role for X-Men's From the Ashes line too. We're going to preview the new issue of Avengers. This one is getting more important to the X-Men with each and every day because Storm has now joined the roster of the Avengers. This series is still written by Jed MacKay. However, it looks like it features art from Fareed Karami. Not sure who the regular ongoing artist is on Avengers. The cover is illustrated from Valerio Schiti. Black Panther War Journal. Free the prisoners. Black Panther stars in this issue as he journeys into the pocket dimension of Meridian Diadem. While the Avengers deal with Doctor Doom on the outside, T'Challa must rescue the prisoners trapped within the living prison. Yeah, so we're still moving forward with the Meridian Diadem and some of those characters who are working alongside Kang. I'm wondering if, like the MCU, the Avengers has to position it in a different way to move away from Kang and into Doctor Doom. This book has been working really closely alongside Marvel Comics' current continuity. So I'm really interested to see how this one is going to adapt to the changing continuity and direction of the publisher. Also, Jed McKay is working on the main X-Men series too. I'm wondering if any story elements from X-Men and Avengers are going to start coinciding, especially with the character of Storm. Even though Storm isn't currently based out of Alaska, she's still a pretty important X-Men character, and I have no doubt that she might have some interactions with people like Cyclops in the near future here. So that was our upcoming solicitations for X-Men books releasing in November. Um, for me, it seems like this line is still incredibly healthy, and I'm still really thrilled to cover a lot of these books. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to check for some breaking news, and if not, we will be back with X-Men Monday with Jeffrey Thorne. So I'll be back in just a few moments. Appreciate you coming to the stream today. Okay, thank you so much for your patience. Let's go ahead and jump right into the upcoming X-Men Monday coming in from Chris Hassan over at Adventures in Poor Taste. Right now, Marvel is right about to launch their brand new X-Force series this upcoming Wednesday. We've talked about it ad nauseum over this stream and yesterday's stream. I'm so excited to see what Jeffrey Thorne and artist Marcus Toe are set to bring alongside this brand new team. It features such an interesting roster of characters, with Betsy Braddock and Ascani being folded back into the narrative. Plus, we have really important X-Men mainstays who've been so important to the Krakoa era of comics, with individuals like Forge and Sage being featured alongside this new character of Tank. Without further ado, let's see what Jeffrey Thorne has in store for the future of X-Force on X-Men Monday. Welcome, X-fans, to another Uncanny edition of X-Men Monday at AIPT. To fix a broken world, Forge is assembling an all-new, all-different kind of mutant team in X-Force 1, written by Jeffrey Thorne and illustrated by Marcus Toe. On sale July 31st. Along for the ride, well, that'd be Betsy Braddock, Rachel Summers, Sage, Surge, Tank, and soon-to-be movie star Deadpool. What can we expect from this new From the Ashes X-Force team, including their interpersonal relationships and future adventures? Let's find out straight from Jeffrey. Just want to say from the jump here, love the first cover for X-Force #1 from Steven Segovia. Some of the matching elements of the outfits for the new X-Force team really inspire a sense of visual cohesion that's really nice to witness. I wish the From the Ashes era would have more consistent outfits for the X-Men, but I'm wondering if Marvel is going to be saving that for a future upcoming X-Men launch that'll be more focused on like a big premise moving forward. Welcome to X-Men Monday, Jeffrey. Thank you for having me. As this is your first time appearing in the column, I'd like to give readers a chance to know you better. What was your first X-Men experience as a fan? Jeffrey says, easy. Giant Size X-Men 2, Roy Thomas, Neil Adams, Tom Palmer. It was X-Team 2, the originals plus Havoc and Polaris, versus Sentinels is drawn by Neil freaking Adams. Go read it. The scene where the Sentinels take out the living monolith is gold. After that, I was always on the hunt. What the hell these X people were about? What was the conflict? Mutant? What is that? I lived in back issue bins and boxes for years, backfilling my X collection after that. My God, look at that Neil Adams panel. That is just amazing. It's so visceral. There's so much detail that he renders in the individual figures, coming in from like the muscle shaded from Cyclops, or just like the cross hatching on the shoulders from Beast. Man, that is really, really striking. It was a reprint. I didn't even know those existed back then. It wasn't my first ever comic book, but even as a child, it hit me hard enough to stick with it to this day. It's also cool that Jeffrey Thorne was able to be there so early in terms of the X-Men's publishing. Like, I believe this is before Giant Size X-Men, and Chris Claremont's tenure on the title took place. So man, it is so cool to get in on the ground floor even before like the biggest X-Men reboot known to man, essentially. AIPT, those mutants will hook you. Okay, X-Force. What would you say your From the Ashes run has in common with past X-Men X-Force series, and what makes it stand out on its own? Jeffrey says it has zero in common with past iterations of X-Force, except that a couple of its members have been on prior X-Force teams. This isn't a continuation of those, nor is it picking up on any prior plot threads or closing off supposed errors, nor is it a commentary on rejection of any of those, good or bad, 100% new, jump in without any prior knowledge, folks. I feel like I can speak for Jeffrey Thorne when I say that having that prior knowledge of Krakoa and knowing who some of these mutants are will probably lead to a better reading experience. But if you are a newer reader, this is a great place to get to know some fascinating X-Men like Rachel, Betsy, and Surge. It stands on its own because of everything I just said: new team, new mission, new dynamics. Okay, it looks like Jeffrey may agree with me here. He says, that said, Krakoa is over, but it left a scar on a lot of folks, which is causing minor to major bends in their behavior and worldviews going forward. AIPT says, intriguing. Let's break down your cast, starting with Forge. As a character, what made Forge the right mutant to center this new iteration of X-Force around? Jeffrey says, I've been fascinated with this character ever since his first appearance. I want to get into what kind of person he is first and foremost, how he sees the world based on his past, and how he interacts with the world he sees largely as a series of simple to complex problems to solve. Mechanically, he doesn't just make stuff. I want to explore what he actually does. Right now, the character of Forge really feels like the driving force of this brand new X-Force series because of this new technology he has that's driving so much of the plot for this new series. That was the core and shape of this book when I pitched it. Once we started nailing down plot details, Tom Brevoort and Mark Basso thought this was the right book to be the new X-Force. Obviously, I agree, and here we are. I just like Forge. I always have. Forge is awesome. After I locked in on Forge, the rest was just dominoes falling down. I understand this sentiment because when I read some of those Krakoan comics, it felt like Forge was the catalyst for some kind of crazy technology that would open up a brand new story for the X-Men. I love this idea and the way that Forge is also going to be serving as the catalyst for the new X-Force. In an interview with comicbook.com, you mentioned Betsy Braddock isn't thrilled to join the team, but does so due to her girlfriend Rachel Summers' interest. Where is Betsy's head going into this post-Krakoa? We caught a little glimpse at what they're talking about from AIPT in some of those preview pages over from the art team that looked a lot like Immortal X-Men, but were from Marcus Toe. It was interesting to see Betsy be a little bit apprehensive about joining Forge and the rest of her X-Force members. I'm curious to what Jeffrey has to say about some of the motivations behind Betsy and the new From the Ashes comics. Lady Elizabeth Braddock has a great number of things to juggle. The aftermath of Krakoa's fall, obviously, her forced split focus between her life in 616 and her duties as Captain Britain in other worlds. Also, she's got this new relationship with this insanely powerful and volatile and mercurial, I love that word, mercurial girlfriend who's brought her own baggage on this journey, which is considerable. Yeah, Betsy feels like one of the most complicated characters like in the X roster currently, and bringing her aboard a team book with so many established players is a super bold move. I have no idea if Jeffrey Thorne is going to have the space to really flesh out Betsy or Rachel in X-Force, but man, I hope he does. And also, how fantastic is this cover too? I'm seeing Mahmoud Asrar's signature in the lower left column. It's got to be him due to some of the facial expressions. Some of these faces are kind of similar too to what we saw from that Psylocke cover. I think she can be forgiven for wanting to take some private time to get her feet under her again. She ain't gonna get it. Neither is Kitty Pryde in terms of like Chicago or Exceptional X-Men either. Speaking of that girlfriend, X-fan Antonio Pasquale pointed out that in recent months we've seen Rachel play an important role as Ascani, protector of the timeline. Antonio wanted to know if we'll see any further developments for this side of Rachel in X-Force. That is such a great question. Dead X-Men was such an amazing comic book. I feel like that's probably one of Steve Fox's best X-Men comics to date, right next to Dark X-Men. Let's see what Jeffrey has to say about whether Ascani will play her role in like policing, the nature of time and continuity for the X-Men moving forward. No way to answer that without blowing up things I'm either doing or intentionally doing. I will say that like others, Rachel has interested me on her own for some time, quite separate from whatever she's got with Betsy. There's definitely something going on with her And not all of that something is good. Some of it is very good, yes, but not all. Very excited to hear what the future of Uncanny is going to be for From the Ashes and X-Force. Also, the really nimble line on the Clayton Clane cover. Also, tapping me into the potential of what this hero could bring moving forward. Tank. Everybody's wondering about Tank. X-Fan Neil asked if this is the same Tank from Eve Ewing's Ironheart series. Jeffrey says Tank is a member of Forge's team, picked by Forge to do what the Tank in every Battle Hobo party does. Tank hits really hard. Most of these things don't get up again after. Sometimes Tank flies the jet. I hope we're going to get a little bit more characterization on Tank, aside from just he hits things really hard and he flies the jet. But maybe we'll have to see here. X-Fan Avery wanted to know what inspired you to put Surge on the team. And X-Fan JG Piff, what a strange name, asked if you could give a hint as to what's in store for her. Surge. Okay, Surge is a big question that I have too. I feel like we haven't seen any preview pages yet for her. I feel like we haven't really had Surge referenced in the solicits as well. So let's see what Jeffrey has to say about Noriko Ishida. I've liked Nori since she first showed up. I liked all of the new X-Men and Academy X kids. As with Forge, I felt they and she specifically never got much shine after their initial run, so she was always going to be on the team. Yes, I have plans for Nori. She's the youngest. She's the only person on the team who hasn't actually killed anyone. The fall of Krakoa may have hit her the hardest of the group, but what's she doing about all that? Come find out. Okay, interesting. I like the fact that Jeffrey is saying her morality is a lot more, positive than so many of the other, seasoned killers in terms of the X-Force. I'm also loving how much this contrasts with the surge of Ultimate X-Men 2. So I am really hoping that just like Betsy and Rachel, Jeffrey Thorne will have the time to flesh out Noriko Ishida as an interesting character for his roster of X-Force. Sage is still a pretty mysterious character. What brought you to her, and is there any chance we'll see more of her backstory in X-Force? Sage, really fascinating for me. It's so interesting how she witnessed the horrors of the previous X-Force on Krakoa and still decided to stick with this team. I'm so interested to hear what kind of headspace Jeffrey Thorne is going to be able to portray for Sage. After Forge, she was the only character who's going to be in this book from the jump. I'm really happy to hear Jeffrey Thorne say that. I feel like this is a character who needs an extremely distinctive voice and a lot of attention and care. I like her power. I like the mystery of her past. I wanted to get both of her and Forge out of the perennial person in the chair or tech support roles. Yes, this is where these two people have been delegated to in so many comics throughout Krakoa. Watching them actually go out on the field and having them be more proactive is a much better position for these two characters. Sage and Forge have somewhat complementary powers, though it doesn't seem so at first blush. I like Tessa a lot. We will see little bits of her life beyond the X. It ain't what you think. I'm going to take him totally at his word for that. I hope it plays out just like he says it will. Artist Marcus Toe is no stranger to the X-Men line. Why is he the perfect artist for this X-Force team? Marcus Toe is an incredible artist. I love just how clean and clear his line is. If you think about X-Force as a comic book series, there are so many members of the cast in this title, and having somebody who has a really clean and modern line is going to get so much mileage out of this upcoming series. I've been ridiculously lucky to work with the illustrators I have in the past, and Marcus keeps my streak going. 1. He's put in his own time on with X during the stints of the Krakoan era. He can draw his ass off. I never think a book is really here until the art comes in. Even Marcus's thumbnails are filled with so much energy, it makes you lean in. The finished art never fails to blow my mind. Yeah, the way that Deadpool is using the top half of Surge to mount this massive assault against all these monster characters is so kinetic and just an epic way to preview motion from Marcus Toe. On a practical note, he seems to have a facility for drawing disparate locales in such a way as to make them both vibrant and grounded, which, for what this book is doing, is a must. Clean lines, dynamic composition, engaging design, what's not to love? I'm asking for him to draw a lot of crazy stuff, so I hope he just doesn't get sick of me. He is the perfect collaborator for this book. Finally, X-Force 1 features Deadpool, but Marvel said we'd see a revolving door of guest stars. What can you tease for the X-Force adventures to come? Jeffrey says spoilers. All I'll say is that not every guest will actually be on the team. We'll be pulling cameos and guests from all across time and space in Marvel 616 and beyond. It's not Mutant Marvel Team Up, but we will be doing a lot of traveling and stepping over lines, so that's going to bring in some folks one might not expect to see elsewhere. Once again, like each cover on X-Force is so striking here from the creative team. This one in particular features so many interesting members of our cast and the character of Black Panther, who's also joining the fray as seen above. Okay, what can I tease? This book is about saving the world by any means necessary. So we will be traveling fast and far. We will see some weird locales and characters, and we'll discover that there's maybe something even more dire going on than what Forge first thinks. What's worse than the end of the world? Come find out. So it looks like that's the end of X-Men Monday. We also have some upcoming solicits on covers from X-Force. But frankly, I think not only have we previewed this cover over on our stream, but we've also previewed the next one too. Yeah, we already saw this cover yesterday, but man, is it amazing from Juan Ferreira. I said yesterday that I wanted Juan Ferreira to draw some of the interiors on X-Force. I still think that rings true. And we have a Clayton Crane issue or cover for the character of Tank. I think it'd also be really interesting to get Clayton Crane interiors on an upcoming issue of X-Force also. Okay, so it looks like there's no new X-Men Monday because AIPT is currently at San Diego Comic-Con. I'm going to take a quick look to see if there's been any breaking news from Marvel since we've been streaming. And if not, that is going to be the end of our stream here. Okay, yeah, I'm not really seeing anything too big in terms of Marvel's publishing line. I want to thank each and every individual viewer for coming to check out our stream this weekend. I had just such a blast checking out all of these San Diego Comic-Con news announcements. I feel like probably next year we're going to get some really big stuff in terms of the X-Men publishing line, with the line being a little bit more seasoned. But man, we had so many new DC Comics announcements and so many really interesting Marvel covers and solicits. Thank you guys one last time for being here and for just spending so much time going over all this new comic book news announcements. I'll be back next weekend for